Please cease all hostile engagement and prepare for Battle Royale match transport.
Welcome back, I'm Nyne from Bluewood Gaming, and today I'm taking a look at the alpha of Islands of Nyne. Now this game's been out for a while on its website, but it just recently made its way to Steam, and so I thought I would give my thoughts on it and whether or not it's worth it to buy it in its current version. But if you're watching this sometime in the future, check the date that this video was out because this game is an alpha, so it might have drastically changed from the time that I'm talking about it. But with all that out of the way, let's get right into it. And in case you don't know what Islands of Nyne is, it is a simplified, skill-based battle royale. And I mean, it's more simplified than the other battle royales, and I think that this one is the most skill-based battle royale out there right now. And by skill-based, I do mean like player skill and not actual abilities, as if this was like Realm Royale or something like that. And now I'll go a bit more in depth by what I mean by that, and we'll start out with the simplified aspect. And the first thing you'll notice is that there are far fewer weapons in this game than there is in pretty much any other battle royale. There's 10 weapons altogether. Actually a pseudo 12, but 2 of them are just different versions of the same gun. There's 2 assault rifles, being the AK-47 and the MK-18. There's 2 SMGs, being the UMP and the P90. There's a shotgun, which is a semi-automatic shotgun that you'd find in pretty much every single game. There's a DMR, being the Px4 Storm, I believe it is. 2 handguns, being the M9 and the Desert Eagle. The M9 has one of the variants, so that's where the pseudo 11th weapon comes from. Then there's a sniper rifle called the Sako, I believe it's pronounced, which has a variant called the Sako Elite, which you can only get in airdrops, so that's actually a reason to go for airdrops, but I'll get into that later. And then you have your knife, and that's every weapon in the game. And then they also simplify it with attachments. There's only 3 attachments in the game, which some weapons can't even have all 3 on them, some can, but there's 3 different types of attachments, actually. You have sights, you have suppressors, and laser sights. That's it. Now, there's several different kinds of sights. There's red dots, holographics, ACOGs 6 times and 8 times. Those can be found by various different means. You can find all of the sights except for the 8 times out in the wild. The submachine guns can only have the red dot and the holographic. The assault rifles can have up to the ACOG. The sniper rifles can have anything on them. The pistols can only have the red dot on them. And just simple stuff like that. Then you also have suppressors, one for each different kind of class. So the assault rifles have an assault rifle suppressor, the submachine guns have a submachine gun suppressor, and so on and so forth. And then the laser sight that can be put on any weapon except for the sniper rifles. So everything here so far is completely simplified. And it goes on past that, even the controls are simplified. So you have the normal movement controls with the mouse doing your head movement and WASD doing your character movement, but they changed it up with Q being your map, so it's really easy to get to. E is to switch to the last weapon that you were on. So if you only have 2 weapons, you can just hit E to switch back and forth between them. 1, 2, and 3 is the other way to get your weapons. Then V brings out your knife, which you can run faster when you have a knife. You can also throw your knife, which adds a little bit more to it. Then H gets you your healing items, and then G gets you your grenades. And that's all the controls that you need to know. I almost forgot, there's also tab to hit your inventory, but the inventory works much differently than it does in other Battle Royale games. So instead of picking stuff up and having an inventory that you actually have to sort through, you only have 3 slots to hold attachments for weapons that you don't currently have equipped. So you can pick up a bunch of sights for weapons that you're going to pick up, but you don't actually have to carry that around. But there's only 3 slots. So you have to know what you actually want to carry around. And then something else that I really, really like that they did is ammo does not take up a slot in your inventory. You can hold the maximum amount of ammo for every single weapon, and the game doesn't care. That's a really great feature, and it just lowers the level of, like, clutter in your inventory, and it just makes everything streamlined and simplified, as I've been saying already. The next thing that's extremely simplified is the way that armor works in this game. There is armor for each different section. You have head armor, you have armor for your arms, legs, and torso. Then you also have a personal shield, which is just extra armor that covers your entire body. So they have to shoot through your shield and then through your armor, and then they will hit you and actually kill you. Which actually segues nicely into talking about skill, and the first thing that I really dislike about this game. You die really, really quickly. Even with your personal shield and even with armor, you will die before you know what happened. Usually. There's occasional times where you'll get hit by a few bullets and then you'll be down to half health or something. But most of the time, if they have a good shot on you, you will be dead before you even know it. And thankfully, that's the only part of the skill that I don't really like. The rest of it is all really, really great. And some of the other stuff that involves skill is maps. The map in particular that we have now is a perfect size, and there will never be a time where you just cannot keep up with the zone as it is progressing. In the footage that you're seeing in the background, every single time that there's a new zone, it is on the opposite side of the area from where I am. And so if this happened in, say, PUBG, I would have been eaten by the zone a long time ago. But in this game, you definitely have a chance to make it to the next zone without getting hit by the unplayable area. And that is something that takes a little bit of getting used to because the zones move faster. But once you get used to it, you will pretty much never get hit by the zone. And I'll talk a little bit more about the zone here in a minute. But some of the other skill things, the most noticeable one is the recoil in this game. The recoil is static, which means that the recoil is the same every single time that you shoot any particular gun. And so you can learn the recoil for a specific gun. So say you really like the AK-47, you can learn the recoil of the AK-47, and then every time that you pick it up, you can pretty much use it as if there was no recoil on it as long as you know the recoil good enough. So that is really, really great, and it actively involves the player getting better, and the players with more skill can control the guns better, and therefore can land more of their shots. Another thing that kind of has to deal with recoil is the way that sniper rifles work in this game. They work pretty much the same way as they do in Counter-Strike. Essentially, if you're moving at all, your sniper rifle is not going to be very effective, even though it doesn't have as much wobble as it does in Counter-Strike. Actually, the sniper rifles, if you're using a sight like the ACOG, the 6x, or the 8x, there will be no swaying in the sight whatsoever. But that means that you have to be pinpoint accurate, because if you miss, you just miss, and you have to actually stop looking in the sight to chamber the next round because of the rifle's bolt action. You actually have to be accurate, but if you are accurate, you can take someone out in one, maybe 2 hits. So yeah, the sniper rifle is just great in this game. So now that I've talked about how the game is both simplified and more skill-based, now I'll talk about some of the stuff that doesn't really fit into either of those categories. And the first one is what you do outside of the Battle Royale game. See, when you're loading into a lobby and it's still finding more players, you can actually play a little game of gun game, if you know, from Call of Duty, which means in this version, you start out with an M9 that's silenced and has a red dot. Then you get 2 kills with that. You get upgraded to a Desert Eagle. You get 2 kills with that. You get upgraded to another gun, and so on and so forth through all the different guns. And it's just a nice way to kind of waste time while you're waiting for a round to start. But I've never had to wait more than a minute and a half to actually get enough players and for the game to actually start. Which might sound like a long time, but there is really, barely any loading in the game, so that time is used to actually load in everything. So that's really kind of great. Another thing is that this game has a training room where you can actually pick up all the guns, check the recoil, try to learn the recoil. It has a target range where you can try to take shots up to 500 meters away, which is absolutely ridiculous. And this training room feature is actually something that I wish more Battle Royale games would do, but this is the only one so far that actually has a training room, and it's great because it has all the different attachments, all the different guns, so whatever setup you would think that you might run into, you can test it in the training room. And one last thing that I actually really want to talk about is just how on the ball these devs have been. The first day that this game released on Steam, they had server issues, there was a stuttering problem, and just things were going really, really bad for them. And some of this stuff is the same stuff that happened to PUBG. The difference is, in PUBG, when they had some server issues, it took them a while to actually deal with them. When Islands of Nyne had some server issues, it took them 24 minutes to find the problem, and within another 2 hours they were fixed. It was seriously, the game released, people found out that there were server issues. Within 24 minutes of the first person playing the game, like 24 minutes after release, they identified the problem, tweeted about it, told them that they were fixing it, put a big notification on the main menu of the game that they had found the problem and were working on it, and later that night had fixed the problem. Like, that is how on the ball these devs are, and that's only one thing. They had European server problems the next day. Those got solved within just a couple of hours. Just more things like that. Almost every day they've had some sort of thing on the main menu where they're talking about how they're actively working to fix something, and almost every single day they fix what they're trying to go after. And I don't know if this is going to continue, but if it does, these are some pretty decent devs. So now that I've talked about all of that, let's go into whether or not I think it's actually worth it to buy Islands of Nyne right now. And even though I've been giving this game a bunch of good points throughout this video, this is actually kind of hard for me to make a decision, because while what's here is great, there isn't really a lot of it. So right now, I think that for the majority of people, if you haven't played a bunch of other Battle Royales, then I recommend waiting for a sale. If you have played all the other Battle Royales and you want one that's actually based on a ton of skill, and skill alone can almost get you through this game, then I would say check this out. But I just want them to add something more before I can make a general recommendation to get this game. Something like challenges where you can unlock specific skins or something like that. I don't know, or more maps, or potentially more weapons, but I kind of like that there's not that many weapons. So just, it needs something more. It just feels like there's something missing, and it needs something a little bit more. But once it gets that something, which I think by the time it hits beta, they'll add that little something that's missing right now. But once that happens, then this game is just good. Just buy this game once they add that something. But for right now, unless you play a ton of Battle Royales, I would recommend waiting for a sale. And not even a deep sale. Just wait for this game to go down to $20 or something like that. But yeah, that's going to be it for this. As always, I'm Nyne from Blue Gaming, and I'll see you guys in the next one.